to stabilize by digging deeper into the business that we already had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately, you know, a lot of our businesses don't have that option. Now, you are able, I'm sure, to serve people at the door or to have people do pickup. Were you able to do delivery? Were you able to engage in partnerships with some other businesses? Like, how did you do it?
So essentially my first thought was, what is next? And so once you start to look at what is next, you start to kind of pay attention to what other people are doing. So if people are getting deliveries to their door, how can we as a company maybe deliver something to your door? So my next thought was, let's do care packages. Hey, if you're going to be in the house for 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe you're going to be making smoothies at home, or maybe you're going to be doing certain fruits and vegetables that you want delivered to your house. So we started to get into the opportunity of care packages. And then on the back end side, if we're a juice bar and we're buying produce, maybe the person who's distributing to us are looking for opportunity or looking for a partner. So now we're starting to get more into the distribution of fruits and vegetables, not to just our customers who come here, maybe to other juice bar, maybe to other businesses, to go deeper into what we do as a business. So right now we're the end product. How do we become part of the distribution? How do we become part of the source? What I realized in the silver lining, they were talking about how many businesses open up in recession times or open up in calamity. It's because there's an opportunity where somebody shut down. And so while somebody's shutting down, closing the doors, and not looking at a silver lining to go bigger, you have that opportunity in that space to really kind of enhance yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not every business had the direct opportunity. How do you go deeper into your business to say, hey, how do I take it to the next level for myself or for my business? And I think that's what we really have an opportunity to maximize over here.
Right.
Maximize the opportunities that we had.
Now, some businesses couldn't stay open at all. I mean, it just was, they didn't have the opportunity to do that. And I think that's where the resources that Donovan talked about come in. One of the things that has pretty much been established and has been mentioned, quite frankly, by Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is that this is the worst economy we have seen. And that not only is it the worst economy in general that we have seen, but it's worse for people of color than for white Americans. Powell noted that a few months ago, the U.S. labor market was the best ever for people of color in terms of unemployment rates. But as stay-at-home orders have shuttered restaurants, movie theaters, retailers, many other businesses, a disproportionate number of non-white Americans have lost their jobs, and it's affected our businesses. Now, Donovan, there are some resources that the federal government has offered through the Paycheck Protection Program, through the EIDL program. There were some state and city resources that were offered as well. A lot of our businesses said they had trouble getting access to those resources. What's the African American Chamber of Commerce doing to help to alleviate those problems?
Well, there were a couple of things. Number one, we were very fortunate to host a town hall conference call with the SBA, with the Small Business Administration. We had both the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast regional administrators for the SBA on the call in partnership with the PA Legislative Black Caucus, in addition to having Senator Street, Senator Vincent Hughes, and a handful of other people, Stephen Kinsey, represent and participate. But what this was an information session where you heard directly from the SBA what was happening and how best to move forward. But then we took it a step further, and we partnered with Lendistry. As you heard recently, Lendistry is a company that squared away $100 million through a partnership with Goldman Sachs to provide these SBA funds, the PPP loans and grants to minority businesses. And Philadelphia was earmarked with $10 million specifically for that. So you may have seen that in the news recently where Mayor Kennedy, PIDC, and a number of other entities, endorsed it and pushed the information out. Well, one thing that we were very fortunate for is that 2 weeks prior to even that information being shared with the public through those mediums, we already had some information sessions where we had the CEO walk you through their actual system of applying for the PPP loan. So again, we were, right there up front trying to make sure that we got as many people to go through the process, because we know that this is a serious challenge when you're talking about navigating through this digital portal, if you will, right? We're not going to even talk about the digital divide. That's a whole other show. But to navigate through this digital portal and actually pull together information that 9 out of 10 businesses, period, regardless of your color, don't have digitally, right? So we're talking about just across the board as a small business owner, regardless of your culture, regardless of your skin, do you actually have your 18, 19, taxes, digitally where you can access them? Or even the person that did it, will they have it on them, being as though we're all, self-quarantine? So that was an issue into itself.
Yeah.
But also, partnering with Lendistry gave people not just access to information, but here's the bag, people, right? Here's the people that actually have the money telling you how to navigate their system to do that. Yeah. In addition to that, for our members, we have additional support in terms of another resource outside of Lendistry for anyone that was having challenges with that PPP loan, and that still exists to this day. Part of it is not just access to the information or even the source itself, but also functioning as curators, if you will, right? Walking them through the process and answering certain questions, negotiating to some extent when it comes to, being their advocate. Right. And on the topic of advocacy, one of the things that I did is I pulled together the other chambers, the Hispanic, the Asian, the LGBTQ chambers, and I said, let's talk about common challenges. And when we did that, we were able to come up with some core points in terms of what's impacting all of us. We put it in the form of a letter, and we shot it off to the state. So, so I'm happy that we were able to take that initiative to get that going. Yeah. And there's some more work that we're going to do in the area of advocacy, as well as, when it comes to op-eds and other support letters that need to really go out to members of Congress and the like. So, so there's a lot there in that space when it comes to advocacy, but there's also in terms of information that we want to share. And then here's the other part, and that is accountability. For many business owners, right? And this is an issue that we don't talk about. This is one of those taboo issues, but business owners being more aggressive in terms of participation, when it comes to voting, when it comes to the census, and when it comes to participating in other things that deal with the institutions, these traditional institutions that have slighted us. This is not like it came out of nowhere. We have a history of being slighted by certain institutions. We get it. But what we don't know, right, is that by not participating, we are guaranteeing more of the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to jump in and say this is the small business stimulus segment. We're talking about Black-owned businesses, small businesses, and how they can survive during this time when a lot of businesses are not going to be able to come out the other side of this. There are some businesses that are not going to reopen. This is the kind of economy that has seen people literally driven out of business by forced closures due to coronavirus. And so we are pairing small Black-owned businesses with experts who can help them navigate this crisis. Joining us today, of course, Donovan West of the African American Chamber of Commerce, and Antoine Bullock, owner of Sweet Treat Hut. And Sweet Treat Hut, of course, is a forward small business member. So what are you hearing, Antoine, from other business owners concerning how they are getting through this crisis?
I'm hearing a lot of struggles, and sometimes it's not maybe the situation, but how you look at it. And so, everything is everywhere. And when it comes to information, you got, one program over here, one program over there, a lot of companies reaching out to you. And I tell people, you have to spend time working on your business, not in your business, because if you're not spending time working on your business, you're missing a lot of information that's coming down that pipeline. And so a lot of people don't know what grants are available, don't know how to access them, or maybe don't have the time to spend putting together packages, looking for all their old documents, talking to their accountants, reaching out to their payroll company, going back and forth, making sure they get the updates on the changes that are coming. So when packages are going out, not only are they half put together, but they're not ready. And so a lot of people, when these grants came out, by the time that most people found out, that grant's closed. So they just had a grant maybe come out maybe 4 days ago or like half a week ago. They just opened up and they said, hey, by 3 o'clock it's going to open up. 3 o'clock it opened up. By 3:15, the whole portal is overwhelmed, so you can't even get on the portal. And by the next day, that grant is closed. So it's a scramble for a lot of people. It's a don't know what to do, how to do, and when we find out about the information, it's trying to force your way in to be able to access anything. And that's where it looks a lot of scary territory for people because they don't have any extra opportunities, or maybe they didn't put away those emergency funds to help them through this troubling time. And
right.
You got people giving you information from all different sources, and you have to filter out not only what's false, what's fake, what's not true, but then go dig deeper into it to make sure your information is correct, is right, you qualify, and then you make it in time for them to even see your application. So it's a lot of scrambles with information everywhere, and there's a lot of people who are lost. But, you got to approach every situation optimistic because it pushes you forward to be able to keep on trying for more things that may come your way.
Yeah, yeah.
Antoine, I'm glad you said that. And I definitely champion what you're sharing in terms of being able to actually be a little more fluid. Pardon the pun because you got the sweet tea situation jumping off over there. But the goal for many businesses right now is survival, but they have to understand at the end of the day that they can't get, they can't have paralysis through analysis, right? They get all this information and they're just kind of overwhelmed. And here's the thing, I've been talking a lot about the P's in perspective. I literally just talked to a group of business owners and professionals about that. It's the P in perspective. And the number one is the pause. You have to pause for a moment and just be able to say, okay, number one, accept as crisis. Number two, take inventory of your loss. Number three, which is the most important, take inventory of what you do have and start to now, be able to move. There are a lot of business owners that are contacting us and they're saying, hey, Wes, my business is dying or it's dead, it's blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying to them with all due respect, your business isn't dead because I'm talking to the business. You are the business. The latest vehicle may be on in ICU or close to dead or died. But you are, as long as you can be fluid and go into another vessel of sorts, then you can still continue to live and be able to thrive actually. So being more fluid and say, you know what, I'm going to switch it over to a virtual set, or I'm going to go curbside, or you know what, I'm going to make sure I get these menus out and people know that here's my reduced menu, or at the very least, I'm going to make sure I contact all my customers to let them know that, I'm still here, I'm still working through some stuff,
right.
or these types of things. Another good thing is come to the chamber and check out our site, right?
What's the site, Donovan? Because we got to go to break. What's the site?
www.aachamber.com/COVID-19. There you can see some key information about where to apply and what's available, and we're providing updates regularly.
Okay, we're going to go to break. On the other side, we're going to continue talking about small business and how you survive during this time of coronavirus. We're talking with Donovan West from the African American Chamber of Commerce, and we are also talking with Antoine Bullock, owner of Sweet Treat Hut, a WURD small business member. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
Get your money straight.
Get my money right.
With Solomon Jones and Akbar Hassan.
Fridays on Wake Up with WURD.
7 a.m. till 10 a.m. Hosted by Solomon Jones. Exclusively on WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Streaming live on WURDradio.com and on the WURD Radio app.
Right now, nurses are on the front lines, delivering direct care to those fighting the virus, supporting patients isolated from family members, implementing telehealth into their practices, and providing leadership of hospital systems and public health agencies. You can let nurses know you care with a message of gratitude by using the hashtag #GratitudeForNurses on Twitter and Instagram, or by posting a message at 2020nurseandmidwife.org.
In Pennsylvania, everyone counts, and everyone needs to participate in the census. Our population count determines our voice in government and how much federal funding our communities receive for health care, food assistance, education, transportation, housing, and more. So every infant and child, every foreign and U.S. citizen, everyone matters. For a stronger future, we all need to count. To learn more, go to pa.gov/census.
No fear,
Just facts.
this is WURD, independent black media.
Have you received your stimulus check yet? Hi, this is Philadelphia Congressman Brendan Boyle. I wanted to let you know that Congress recently passed legislation to give financial relief to many who are now affected by the coronavirus crisis. These payments are meant to help you get through these tough times. So to get information on how to get your payment and to receive my newsletter with updates, please go to boyle.house.gov.
Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
Backed by popular demand.
It's Wake Up with Word, hosted by Solomon Jones. Right now on Word Radio
96.1 FM.
and 900 AM WURD.
Good morning. This is Solomon Jones on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD, and we are back. And we're talking small business in the age of coronavirus. And we're talking with Donovan West from the African American Chamber of Commerce. He's the president and CEO of the African American Chamber of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Also talking with Antoine Bullock. He is the founder and owner of Sweet Treat Hut. And, you know, as we look at the news that's coming out nationally around black-owned small businesses and what's going on with government money, what's going on with access to some of the help that they tell us is available, it is a national story that many small businesses, black businesses in particular, are not accessing this money. Just yesterday, a story came out from NBC News about asking the question, why are so many black-owned small businesses shut out of the Paycheck Protection Program loans? Those are loans that were put together by the Small Business Administration, and they were given through banks. And one of the things that we found was that small banks were giving these loans at a greater rate than bigger banks. Antoine, as you have experienced this shutdown, have you tried to get access to some of these federal loan programs that they tell us are available? And if so, what was your experience?
Well, the most
He just started laughing. He just, yeah.
So
Man, oh man,
I
oh man.
realize there's some banks who are fully prepared, who know what's going on, who talk to the right people, and are putting things in place. And then there's some banks out here have no clue what's going on. So I actually bank with 3 or 4 different banks.
Yeah.
Just to make sure because we have a second location we opened up in South Philly.
Mm-hmm.
We're at Children's Hospital. So, certain banks I just wanted to just try out. I have one bank, and I realized I probably had most information. And literally before the PPP even rolled out, they came to everybody in their branch and said, here's your paperwork. Here's what we need you to line up. Let's look it over before we submit it, before it comes out. Every other bank has been, after the aftermath or after the program's rolled out, which is just too late. And so maybe they didn't get their information clear enough. Maybe they didn't get the right sources. And so what happened with those other banks that I bank with, literally, it was just a chaotic moment. So all I could do was really look at my paperwork from the first bank that gave it to me and forward it over. A lot of banks, I want to say, weren't prepared for what was about to come down the pipeline or didn't even handle these type of loans. So they didn't prepare themselves when this loan started to roll out, which made it chaotic for everybody who banked with them. And those banks really didn't help us in this time. The one bank I want to say that really just was prepared, and they really jumped on it before this program rolled out to kind of give me a gist of what I should be looking for, checking my paperwork twice, and ready to submit it when that PPP rolled out. So I came across one good bank. The rest of the banks were just too late and just too slow with it for you to even come across that first wave.
Wow. So originally they had $349 billion allocated for this Paycheck Protection Program and the loans that they were given. And the program is supposed to help businesses to pay their employees during this time, right? So that original $349 billion, they ran through that. A lot of it went to businesses that did not need it, huge conglomerates, and some folks actually had to give back the money once the story came out. But
Solomon,
then they wait a minute,
Solomon.
give me 1 second. Then they put out another $310 billion in funding last week, and so they ran through the original $349 billion, and then they came out with another $310 billion. And there have been problems. A lot of black businesses saying they haven't been able to access it. And it really does depend on what bank you go to. So go ahead, Donovan.
Yeah, so I was going to say that, well, Antoine, you had a comment?
You know what? It was that first wave discouraged a lot of people.
Yeah.
You got Ruth Chris, Shake Shack, big companies that you know have millions of dollars,
That's right.
billions of dollars.
Yep.
And they're sitting there, yep, I got my money. And so what it said to you was, if you knew somebody or you were well connected, you made it. The rest of us looked and said, how dare they touch small business funds when you're billion-dollar companies?
Yep.
And so it not only discourages, but it says, "This I'm not even going to get a chance." When
Well,
you
let me also add to that.
million, 20 million, 30 million, 50 million, all Trump's companies or this companies, you start to just sit back and say, that's dry already. And so, you know, it was encouraging to hear that some of these people had to pay these funds back, but we don't know if they're going to have to pay them back in weeks, months, years, and that funds is going to be held up where a lot of us are still not going to be able to access. So, you know, it was encouraging to hear that they were going to have more funds roll out. It was depressing to hear that first wave of people, big companies, scam their, I don't even want to say scam, but maneuvered or finagled their way in and say, yeah, we're a small business.
Yeah.
Well, let me just add that what you had was a good example of knowledge is power, okay? And so what you realize is that while they broke rules in terms of from a moral standpoint, they didn't break rules from a technical standpoint. And that is really the crux of business in many ways. Like a good example is, you know, we talked often about the businesses that are not being served. But one thing that's an elephant in the room that no one talks about is our non-traditional informal economy, right? The tons and tons of business owners that are out there that are not on the table, right? And for this reason, you know, they often the thought is, well, I don't want to pay those types of taxes. Not understanding the biggest myth of all time is that if you don't want to pay taxes, you shouldn't, you know, have your business on the table. The reality is the total opposite. If you don't want to pay taxes, you need to have a business and learn and use your knowledge of the tax codes so that you can be able to actually have a good business and also at the end of the day, reduce the amount of exposure. But it's information. Information is key. And you're right, when you got the Ruth Chris and Shake Shack, and you're talking about that's 10, that's 15, that's 20, that's $30 million. That's crazy. You got Harvard and other institutions that got billion-dollar dowries or whatever you call it, you know, and it's ridiculous. So the information though is really what's key, because when you look at and you know cross your T's and you dot your I's, you realize that they didn't break any rules. They jumped all over it, and that's the same kind of ferocious kind of energy and attention to detail that we need to do it. Now, it's wrong that they did that, but what's also wrong is that we are not participating with that same ferocious kind of energy to attack it and understand that at the end of the day, even when it comes to the triple P, people didn't understand that if you just started the process with the bank, then you can actually get it's like a reservation number, if you will. By way of starting the process, you didn't get all the underwriting, requirements in yet, but you started the process. Guess what? The amount that you requested and the fact that you started the process, it reserves your spot. People don't know those little things, but guess what? Those other businesses do. So even while they're scrambling, they know how to play the game. And the goal is for us to get that information out. So for many banks, by the way, the major difference between round one and round two, round one, it was just all out free for all, right? Round two now, they're saying, well, you know what? We're going to earmark $60 billion, and it's going to go to smaller banks and financial institutions that are supposed to have those relationships with, the small business community. Now, again, you still are leaving out a major chunk of small businesses that actually have relationships or at least accounts with big banks, right? Because they're still being ignored and we're not really talking about that. The other part about that is that when you're talking about a emergency relief and there's nothing actually etched in stone, well, guess what you have? You have a situation where it becomes very subjective in terms of the underwriting requirements between different banks, and that's problematic. But on the business side of things, if I'm a bank, here's what I do understand. I don't know you, so guess what I'm going to do? If you're a person that has a business and you don't have a relationship with me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask you for more information than what's typically expected at certain other banks that may have a relationship with their members. Now, having an account is not the same as having a relationship. In many instances, a relationship would be defined more so as you actually have a loan product with that bank. They know you. You've gone through some underwriting before with that bank. And so when you've gone through some underwriting before with that bank, you become low-hanging fruit, okay, for that bank, because from a capacity standpoint, an underwriting standpoint, there's less exposure for them. There's less exposure to fraud. There's less exposure to mishandling in terms of underwriting requirements because they have a history with you. So that's a legitimate reason for a lot of banks to take a longer process.
Donovan, I want to thank you for that, but I do got to say this. That what happened originally with the Paycheck Protection Program was that many of the bigger banks prioritized their wealthy clients, right? So, for example, Citibank, they have a private bank where the minimum account size is $25 million. Those small businesses did not have to use the portal that somebody like Antoine would have to use. They didn't have to go through an online.
25 million in small business?
They had to have. That's right. That's right. The minimum account size was 25 million. They didn't have to go to the portal. All they had to do, and it speaks to your issue of relationship, all they had to do was call up their private banker and say, yo, I need you to submit this paperwork for me. They could literally write it on a piece of paper, give it to their banker, and their banker put it in on their behalf. And the deep thing is that the money that Shake Shack got, right, they had $100 million laying in the cut. They had money, right, but they got this loan. They gave it back. But now, because of the rules of the program, that money that they gave back cannot be used to give that money to smaller businesses that need it. They gave the money back, and now it's just sitting there. I mean, this is crazy, and so that's why we need organizations like the African American Chamber of Commerce, other organizations, our small business development centers, to walk our folks through this. And we need the smaller banks that you can deal with that will actually give you those types of loans. Now, Antoine, you had different experiences with the different banks. So what was it dependent on? I mean, what can you say to other small business owners in terms of choosing a bank to go to try to get access to some of this funding?
Well, it's about to get a little ugly in this conversation, but in all reality, you have to choose a bank that makes more sense. And so, contrary to what Donovan said, I hadn't really had a long-standing relationship with this one bank. They just knew the rules of the engagement and knew the rules of the game. And so the bank that I have, that I run all my payrolls through, that all the checks come through, that really we've had deeper dealings, just weren't prepared. And, this one bank really stood out because they just dove right into it. So as soon as they seen the opportunity, they took advantage. And when you say that tiger-like hunger, I'm the type in business, I have that tiger-like hunger. So I had to look to and call every bank, except this one bank had better communication, it had better systems, it had better things in play. I think for a lot of people, you can't really go to your local mom and pop shops because they weren't prepared. Yeah. And with that being non-prepared, you kind of, Solomon's really right. The bigger banks, even if you didn't have a personal bigger bank or personal banker, if you came at them with a tiger-like ferociousness to push your paperwork through, like I got a reservation number, but to push my paperwork through, those bigger banks were going to really be able to take care of you the first round to at least get you on the list or at least have your opportunity really seen. The rest of these banks don't even know about reservation, didn't know about lists, just was trying to throw paperwork in the air. Hopefully something sticks. So if you were with a bigger bank that knew what they were doing, you were probably good. If you were with a smaller bank, No, it was crap.
Well, I'm gonna say, Antoine, that I totally agree that your experience was, that's legit. It's, however, it's an exception, meaning
Yeah,
a lot of the
is.
large banks, and I'm talking about getting calls, emails, DMs, inboxes. A lot of the bigger banks, what they were also doing is they were reaching out to the business owners that they wanted to work with and that they had a relationship with. And again, by the way, there were some great banks. I'm going to name a couple of great banks. Customer Bank was great. Republic Bank, phenomenal. Wisfis did a lot of great. These are some banks that actually, we got some good experiences through some of our entrepreneurs, but it really depends on that relationship, who you were talking to and things of that nature. But across the board, the majority of those large banks were reaching out to, to Solomon's point, certain banks, the business owner could just make a call or whatever, but a lot of banks were reaching out to those that they were willing to put on a list and put into the queue and say, listen, let's get this thing started. There is, however, a handful of banks that, like you said, they know the rules, they're ready, but just let's say as across the board, the majority of banks are not used to dealing with what they call 7(a) loans. This whole SBA loan product is not a common product amongst the whole banking industry. There are certain banks that are okay with it, are familiar already, and there are a ton of other banks that had to catch up literally within about 48 to 72 hours. That's the reason that even while it was still available, effective on that Friday, most banks didn't actually start it till that Monday, and they used the whole weekend to put together their own system in terms of how they were going to service it. So I totally agree in terms of the familiarity of certain banks and institutions. For many small banks, they weren't actually even able to play in the game the first round. And this round, they are now just starting to get into it, as well as some CDFIs. Shout out to Enterprise Center, by the way. The Enterprise Center can now do PPP loans, and that's a big deal. WORC, they can also do PPP loans. So these are some other institutions that traditionally could not participate at that first round that are now able to do it in this round, and that's going to open it up a little bit in terms of relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to get ready to end this segment, but I think that the bottom line is this: that you had bigger businesses that were identifying themselves as small businesses and qualified as small businesses because they knew the rules, Donovan, right? Who they had resources that many small businesses don't. They had their accountants on speed dial. They had their tax preparers on speed dial. They had their lawyers on speed dial. They had their bankers on speed dial and were able to kind of get through this process. To Antoine's point, it really does depend on who you're dealing with at whatever bank you go to. It does. It depends on whether the person, just like anything else, do they want to do their job? Right? And do they want to do it for you? And so I appreciate both of you brothers, man. How do people, very quickly, Donovan, get in touch with the African American Chamber of Commerce?
You can just go ahead and shoot me an email at dwest@aachamber.org, dwest@aachamber.org.
All right. And Antoine, where is your business located? How do people do business with you?
We're over in West Philly. We're in South Philly. And if you work at Children's Hospital, we're also in the hospital. 1240 North 50th Street in West Philly, 1221 South Broad Street. You can actually, we're doing one customer at a time. We deliver, you can take it curbside, and then also we're trying to help you not only with our products, but fruits, vegetables, things that you need to stock up more, or care packages. We will deliver to any parts of the city that you are in.
All right. All right. Well, I want to thank you both, Donovan West from the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, and Antoine Bullock, founder and owner of Sweet Treat Hut. Gentlemen, thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to break on the other side.
Keep on shaving.
No doubt. You better believe it.
Bald is beautiful. Bald is beautiful.
Yes,
Watch
it is.
the glare. Watch the glare.
We are going to go to break on the other side. We're going to take your calls, 215-634-8065. I'm Solomon Jones. We'll be right back.
Seniors, if you're over the age of 60, you're at high risk for the coronavirus. This is Dr. Chris Chen, CEO of Dedicated Senior Medical